Thank you. Good morning, and thank you to all of our people in the audience that have joined us this morning. I'd like to call the meeting, our facility committee meeting, to order. Noting that the 3 board members are here, part of the administration, and we have several elected partners here. The first thing I need is approval of the agenda.
So
second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I have not received any public comments. No. And so our first item to review is our heritage.
Do you want to make one or no?
Sure. I do.
We do have someone here who might want to make one.
Sure.
You need to come up to the table. And if you would on your way, I'll fill out one of those blue sheets just so I have your name and everything.
Sure. Perfect.
You can sit there. Sorry. I should have looked around a little more.
I was hiding from you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jacob Jankowski. I'm with Advanced Concrete. I understand the ready mix concrete bids are being presented today. So I just wanted to let you know, I've been talking with Joan throughout the process too, but we're involved in the school currently wrapping up right now as far as the ready mix supply, and we're hoping you guys will consider us for the supply of this one as a graduate. Both myself and my brothers, I'm a 2011 graduate of the school. It's greatly appreciated that we're able to participate in these referendums and the local school projects as people who went through the district ourselves. So, and we appreciate when you guys also consider other local suppliers in that, because it is really important that local people from the, that were in the district and both work here and live here get to participate in the school stuff. So anyways, greatly appreciate it. Looking forward to your guys' consideration.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, so our first agenda item is to look at our Heritage Elementary School and the owner contingency tracker.
As I'm looking at that, Joan, I realized I forgot to delete a sentence. It said Rich was going to be here to review. That was last month, so apologize for that.
Oh, I was expecting Rich, but that's okay. We got Steve.
Rebecca, would you mind opening that up for a moment? We do like to share with the committee, and you can go all the way to the bottom, with the contingency tracker for Heritage Elementary School. As this committee knows, last month we brought in front of you the metal panels at the roof. So you now see that that item second from the bottom. We've also had another what's called construction bulletin that fell under the $50,000 amount. That was for a number of different things that were put together, leaving us with a balance today of, in one contingency, column 2,516,000 and then 212 in the other. The project continues to go incredibly well. The schedule is on time. That's a main focus of what we do at our on-site construction meetings. The budget is going incredibly well. The contingency, at this point, it certainly appears that there will be a decent amount of contingency available at the end of the project for this committee and the board to ultimately consider for other projects across the district, which is clearly what we were hoping for. So all is going very well at Heritage. I'm happy to report that we continue to be on schedule for July 31st, substantial completion. Randy, anything to add?
No, I just would want to echo what Steve said. I think the project's going extremely well, and very impressed with kind of how Vogel brings all these things forward and is very responsive to them. So it's going excellent.
Thank you. Moving on to the middle school. I think we have some updating bids for the middle school.
Yeah, so Jay's going to join us, probably Adam. So just some background. So Vogel invited district administration into their offices for the middle school bid day. So Randy, Allie, and myself had the opportunity to just go in and observe and participate in the process and basically kind of see how it works behind the scenes. We appreciate that transparency because it gives us the opportunity to see, as information is coming in live, kind of how that process is working. After that date, the Vogel team then goes into their extensive vetting process where they have to look at everything that's come in. So it's definitely much more complicated than just the exciting stuff that we get to see on one day. So between then and now, the Vogel folks have continued basically working together to vet out all of the information that came in. There are a couple of specific items that we believe are ready for you to take a look at today. But before we jump into that, we're going to turn it over to Vogel to give a high level overview of how did the bid day go, where are things at. Just note that this presentation also includes Bethel Circle. So there's a separate agenda item on Bethel Circle, but Jay's going to jump into that because it's got everything in it. So we'll turn it over to the Vogel team.
Sounds good. Now open. Actually, thank you, boss.
Yeah.
Morning. So, as Steve alluded to, what we want to hit on is both the Bethel Circle project bid results as well as the middle school bid results. And then we subcontractor awards. We also have some next steps in here, just outline what the next 2 months probably look like in terms of board interaction as it relates to the middle school specifically. So this is our favorite slide. We have to have it in every slide deck just as a reminder, but this is the breakdown of the various projects that made up the referendum. And today, you know, the middle school is what we're focusing on with that $99,920,000 for the total project cost. And then of course the Bethel work was part of this $5 million that we earmarked for work throughout the district and high school. So middle school bid results. So what you see here is an update. You can see the total does still total that 99,920,000. So we're in a really good spot from a budget perspective. This breakdown shows you the total construction as it sits today, what we're carrying for contingency. So that's a little bit over 4%. To give you a perspective for Heritage, as Steve just reviewed that contingency tracker, we started Heritage right at 4%. And obviously we've been able to hold that really steady throughout the project. For this project, it may be a little bit more difficult just in terms of it is a longer project. You know, it is almost 2 years long. And so from an escalation, that standpoint, everything we've built into the bids in terms of escalation, but there could be some more variables that come into play. And then in terms of soft costs, we're carrying $11,700,000 right now. So again, that includes the design for the school, all of the furniture. The equipment budget is a lot larger than the Heritage Elementary because of the new tech ed spaces, the AIG space, and some of the other spaces that the elementary school doesn't have. And that also does have solar in that, and I'll touch on that here in a second. So in general, obviously very pleased with where the bid results fell in. Did get a lot of response from the marketplace, and we were happy with where numbers fell in terms of budget. Some of that success can be seen in what we have shown down here. So as we went through this budgeting process over the last about year, we were identifying items, scope items that we listed as alternates. And that was to give the district the ability to pull a lever in terms of where the numbers came in. And ultimately, due to the positive results, we were able to pull all those scope items back into the project. So that's the track resurfacing, the outdoor classroom space. There was some lockers that weren't necessarily needed in terms of numbers day one, but would be needed in terms of your growth. And so we are able to put those in day one so you don't have to add lockers down the road. The cellular repeater system, that's to be able to use cell phones within the space. And then full height tile throughout the bathrooms where we looked at an option to potentially reduce that down to like a 6-foot height. And so we were able to build all those back in. And then really the biggest item was to include budget for the solar panels. So when we presented our last budget to the board, we had that off to the side as targeted money to come. Ideally, if we could save money throughout this process, we would pull back back in, and so right now we've earmarked $750,000 to be able to do so as well. So if you look at all those items total, a little over $1 million. So, we still are tracking to our budget. We're able to pull all that scope back in.
So when you look at full height tiles, are you going all the way up to the ceiling?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions in terms of bids and scope? Okay. So I'm going to hit the next steps, and I'll have Adam dive into the bid results or the bid awards I would like to get approval for today. So right now our target for June round of meetings would be to bring forward our final guaranteed maximum price. So it would be the final number that we'd say, here's our final contract amount and final contingency amount. Along with that, we would have multiple subcontractor bid awards. So all the large scopes of work, we're going to want to make recommendations for bid awards at that. And then in June, we're also going to be mobilizing on the site in the middle of June as well. Then once we look into July, there is going to be some remaining subcontractor bid awards. So we'll be able to guarantee our number because we've scoped them enough to be comfortable with the number that's in our GMP. But there might be some that we don't have enough time to do all the final vetting to say, here's who we want to hire for sure. And so some of those will drag into July. And then July is also once things are really going to start happening on site with building demolition. And then the new building foundation are all going to start right around the 4th of July. So some exciting stuff happening there. One thing I will mention too, that the street work, there's going to be utility replacement work that's going to happen out in front of the school. That's targeted to start right away in June 10th or 11th, I believe, as well. So there'll be a lot happening in terms of the street work there as well. Questions on that? All right. So the bid awards. We want to go to that other Steve, probably. Or
Director, would you mind pulling up the second attachment for this agenda item, please? Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So echoing what Jay had said and Steve said, we got a lot of good bid interest for these three that we're going to show today. The first one being fire protection. Hooper Corporation was the low bidder. You can see they came in slightly underneath the budget we've been carrying. They were already awarded on the project for plumbing, so it made sense to us that they could come in aggressive on the scope, being mobilized with some equipment, some cost efficiencies there. So any questions on fire protection? But that was pretty straightforward.
Who else is Hooper doing all of our fire protection through the buildings or?
Well, 1901 is actually doing Heritage, Jack, and then where did we end up on high school? 1901. Yeah.
And that's all consistent components.
Yeah, and the fire protection side, yeah.
Thank you.
Let's scroll to the next one. Concrete reinforcement. So this is the rebar, the steel that goes into the concrete. So we had three bidders, local companies, the ones we kind of expected to get numbers from. All very close. Hatch came in, the most aggressive, a Madison company. They're a little bit over the budget we've been carrying, but we scoped all three of them and are comfortable with that number. So feeling good about this one. And then concrete ready mix. So kind of as Jacob had talked a little bit, Advanced is the local Waunakee company. We've been talking with them and Lycon, scope both of them. Advanced came in low, and Advanced was also on Heritage. We've been talking about lessons learned from that project that we can take forward and then take advantage of the middle school. So any questions on those?
We just need a motion to move this to the board. Right, it's over. Do we want to do that now?
Contracts or bids is.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you.
So if we want to follow the agenda, we would bounce out of this and go to the high school and then come back to Bethel Circle, if that's all right. Unless you had anything else, Jay, on the middle school.
No, the rest is Bethel.
Okay. So for the high school, administration has continued to work on multiple fronts. Certainly one of them is we have been engaged in discussions with both DUA and Vogel on discussion around the high school campus. We continue to explore different concepts and get schedules aligned and move forward with that process. As we continue to have those discussions, we often track back to what we're doing today to again continue to verify if what we're doing today has any risk of potentially being changed in the future. With that theme, we have brought to you something for consideration today. It's certainly a larger expenditure, one that we think is worthy of the committee taking a couple of minutes to look at. So what this topic is LED lighting replacement. So back in March, the facility committee and then the school board approved a proposal for the high school for $1,440,000, which was a building-wide complete LED swap out at the high school. It's an excellent proposal. Significant energy savings would be occurring in our building that's used the most. But with an asterisk that as we've been engaging in the other discussions, we've realized it probably is worthy of considering shifting that work this summer off of the high school over to Prairie and Arboretum. So we have quotes for Prairie and Arboretum of $1,372,000 while allowing that high school campus discussion to continue in the event that the board might see something 6-8 months from now that would cause someone to say, I wish we hadn't done that. So we've been working with Westfall. Westfall, who has the purchase order for the LED project at the high school, is willing to redirect that work to 2 other buildings and pause on the high school. So we have an agreement with them that they're willing to void the purchase order or the approval that came in March, and we would move forward in a different way. We thought this was a large enough dollar amount that we wanted to put this in front of you today for consideration. If you want to consider the shift, we would put it on the agenda for the board meeting next Monday night, and we would just direct Westfall to go or to Prairie and Arboretum instead of this.
Yeah, I think our recommendation is to make the move. We think it eliminates all risk of doing something that may impact, and it's going to move any buildings completely forward and completely. So from our perspective, it makes sense for us to make that move as we go deeper into kind of our conversations around what we should be doing in the LED space.
Like, so you want a motion from this committee to move that to the board? Motion to the board. Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Okay, thank you. So next topic, Bethel Circle. So we did spend some time with the committee at prior meetings, really getting your direction on Bethel Circle. If you recall, we had a presentation, we showed some options, we showed some budget estimates. And the direction that we received from the committee was stick to the referendum budget. Don't seek to expand the scope, because again, these concepts are being explored for the high school, middle school campus. What if there is a scenario where portions or part of Bethel Circle would move into middle school? And so let's minimize for now, any additional investment in Bethel until that full plan has been created. So we took that direction. Jay and his team went out to market accordingly. We're gonna jump back to Jay's presentation where he can show what the bid results were for Bethel. And then we can show you how it lined up and what we would need to do to value engineer to keep it within that original budget. So, Jay?
Yep. So the two images you have in front of here are depictions of what the scope is. We'll start on the outside. So this is the existing parking lot here. So right now the scope is to redo that existing parking lot, which is in pretty bad shape. And also add some additional parking. So you can see this strip of parking here plus this entire parking lot gets added. So I think it's another 36 stalls, I want to say, off the top of my head. And then what you see here is some stormwater retention that's related to adding that additional living surface. There's also some utility work to help improve some of the drainage issues that you currently have with the existing segment. I will mention, you can't see here, but we also have provisions to include rough-in to add electric car charging station on the side of the building. So that's the rough-in only, so that way down the road.
Would that be for our vehicles or for?
I think it could be for all the above, I think, right? Be for future fleet vehicles and then current staff visitors for the front door.
It's just getting sucked in right now, so there's not gonna be the station there.
And then this is,
Just building on that, can you, if you're subbing this in, can you put more on there?
So right
now, it looks like you got two.
So there's one here and one will actually serve two vehicles. Okay. So there's one here that serves two and one here that serves two. But yeah, in terms of roughing, you're not adding to the cost of two at each spot or two at the spots. Most of the money is actually in the device itself. And then this is fairly small, but we're sitting up front here. So if you go in this back area, there's one large that's going to get subdivided into 4 offices. And right now we're proposing 2 additional offices in the back area here with the record storage. So the original scope that we budgeted this way back when was literally looking at just these 4 offices, and as we discussed last time, we brought some other options that ultimately showed us getting up to maybe 10 additional offices. So what we've tried to do is really thread the needle in terms of budget and see what we can maximize in terms of short-term offices for staff here, but also stay within that budget section.
Okay, can you go back? Is there any outside entryway except in the front? Do we have any other access to the building except up there?
I believe this is the only one on those other side door back here.
There is a side door. It already has a concrete pad outside the door. Comes right into the shop. Then around the back, where the new offices are, there's 2 out the door. There's a stand door there.
So again, I just plotted this scope that we had added since last time, just to give you a better idea of that. But so ultimately, our target was 615,000 for these office modifications of the parking lot. Based on the final bids, we're at 629,000, so we're about $14,000 above our target. That does include the electrical charging rough-in. It does include these additional offices. And then the other thing, what we've looked at is our supervision and management of this work is going to happen concurrently with the high school work. So we've not included any additional supervision or management in this budget because we're going to be managing that really has one project. So there's some economy of scale. So as Steve alluded to, there's really potentially 2 directions. One is to go with the scope at the 629,000, or the other direction could be to give us the approval as the design and construction team and administration to figure out how to save that $14,000 and ultimately over that $615,000. What we need to take a look at is some potential modifications. Maybe we do one office instead of two, or we may look at potentially reusing some doors and frames from Heritage and bringing them over here. Some combination thereof.
Who's calling in those up? You got to say this. You know.
Sure, so the individuals that would go into the area with the four, so you see the four offices where the records room are right now.
Yep.
So we have added a new position this year. Jared's in that role, special ed coordinator, who's out in that cubicle area. Jared would be able to have one of his offices. Last month, the board approved a special ed coordinator split where Jared would do 7-12 and we're hiring K6. That person would have one of those offices. As part of the plan that Tiffany put forward, there was an extra administrative assistant. So that would be the third person. So basically 3 of those 4 spaces would be held by special ed positions. In the red area, the idea behind the red area is the administrative assistant that works with John is basically in the hallway out to the exit door. It's not an office, was to try to create an office. I would say that's the 4th priority, is getting that person in the real office instead of the hallway. And depending on what we're able to do in the red area, we were also talking about Scott. Scott's in an open plan room space right now. Plan was to get Scott and Danette into real offices closer to John. But ultimately in the end, it's figuring out what we can end up affording. But basically the priorities would be special ed and then maintenance. And really, ultimately, we want to get the position that Danette is in out in the hallway, you know, into the office. But that's pretty much what it would be. And the reality of it is we're not going to be able to accommodate the adults that are in Heritage. We had thrown out some ideas about the new teacher center, which is in Heritage. The Waunakee Community Cares Coalition is in Heritage. We have social worker, we have Building Bridges, which is a program at the elementary level. It's at Heritage. Dane County Social Work provided by Dane County. They're going to operate out of their home, but those other 3 programs are not going to be able to come out of here. So Rainey and I are going to have the conversations about trying to find other homes for them. If possible, we were seeking to try to find locations for them. Could we bring them out here and do cubicle type things? I mean, potentially, but we think in the end, that's probably not the right fit. So the focus of this would be special ed and custodial maintenance.
Just to add on to that, I think the places that we're still looking for homes with, we posted that out to our admin at the buildings for them to be thinking about what space that we can come back once we get through here. To answer Jack's question about cubicles, some of these are special ed positions. There's a lot of confidential conversations that happen. I know Jared is in kind of a cubicle right now, and there's times that he moves off to have those dialogues. It's just sensitive information. I'd rather not have a cubicle. Better.
I understand that, but you know, from a maintenance standpoint, we've already got cubicle and so classified information and sensitive information. And get 2 cubicles right next to each other, you know, for the staff. It's you know, probably impacting, you know, quite a bit. I'm just wondering, you know, is there, you know, what's the need for, you know, offices? You know, because I'm in the industry, you know, I'm looking at cubicles, etc. It seems like we always build offices, you know, so just trying to understand it.
Yeah, and the reality of it is right now we're over budget. So if the committee recommends staying at the 615, the area in red is going to have to be value engineered in some way. like as Jay said, one office, not two, or some other approach. So that will be the first thing we turn to, Jack, is what can we do in the red, you know, to bring that back to the affordability. But the four core, you know, offices right on top, right next to each other would be confidential office spaces primarily used by special ed. The area that we would value engineer would be the area in the red. But our goal would still to be to get the nest roll out of the hallway.
So our question is really, which one are you more comfortable with? We either stay with the targeted budget at 615 and we engineer our way back down to that. Or we go with what came out with the bids, which is kind of the full build out here at the 629.
I'll make a motion to approve proceeding at the original value at 615,000 within value engineering process.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No.
Anything else with that one?
So I don't know if we need approval, but in terms of subcontractor awards and timing, we'd like to have the administration be able to approve who we award to. Since we will be value engineering, some of those numbers may change. That's why we didn't want to bring a list for today. And then we could bring the final list that was awarded to the June.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jay. So I think one of the things, if we could also bring to the board, and we could just do that as a separate motion here, is that if we're going to move forward with the 615, to just give us the authority then to amend those bids and that work so that we can continue it moving forward. So why don't we just have that as a motion, and we can bring kind of both of those pieces forward to the meeting next week.
So moved, please.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, and then the last topic is district-wide projects. So a couple things. First of all, we have a tracking spreadsheet that Jay continues to update based on what is approved at facility committee meetings and board meetings. So we've attached that. I'm just going to ask Rebecca to, when she has a minute. Rebecca, could you grab the one that says tracking spreadsheet? If you want to just blow it up a little bit on the top. So Jay had to go back through this month and line off the things that we decided to change at the high school. So as you can recall, we had made some decisions at the high school. So as he went through this, he crossed some of those off, which in the end freed up funds because we're no longer spending them at the high school this summer. Doesn't mean we need to spend them now. But one of the ones that we crossed off was if you wanted to cross off the LED lighting at the high school, which you looked at earlier, then we'd add back in the Prairie and Arboretum. And so this is updated as of today, just so you know, we're continuing to track this. The longer term plan, just to reiterate, as the total funds available for this summer eventually gets to our goal of being down to zero, so that we can continue to seek that goal of maximizing interest earnings. As we move into 2025, what we'll be presenting to the facility committee is two things. As we close out Heritage, we'll be working with Vogel on that contingency report that we showed earlier, when we all are comfortable to the point that we can use those funds for district-wide maintenance. We'll move them over here. And number two, we have not brought forward the first borrowing that the board approved, which was the $10 million borrowing a month after the referendum approved. We have not brought forward those interest funds because they're under very different rules from the IRS. What we've been working with this committee and the board on is the second borrowing, the $100 million borrowing, where we had to meet spend down requirements in order to use those interest funds. So as we move into 2025, we expect to populate the spreadsheet with the Heritage savings and interest earnings from our first borrowing. And then as we move into 2026, We'll obviously be much further along with the middle school. If we have any ability to look at some freed up middle school funds, we can look at later in 2026, as well as the fact that later this year, Allie and I will be presenting the financial plan, which has round 3 of the borrowing. And then in early 2025, we'll be presenting round 4, the final round of the borrowing. So we feel like we have a very logical financial plan laid out for 24, 25, and 26, all really designed to maximize the interest earnings that we have on these projects and to be able to utilize savings that are existing from other projects. So with that being said, Rebecca, if you want to open up the other attachment, we do have a few items that we're bringing forward for consideration this month. There's one in particular that I want to talk about because it's connected to a budget committee discussion tonight. I just need to find where it is on the list. Rebecca, could you just make it a little bit bigger? So on the list, there is, okay, there we go. So it says low voltage systems. It's the first, second, third, fourth, fifth one from the bottom. It says additional cost power outage monitoring electrical meters. The original budget was 88.6. So a few months ago, we had on a list a request to replace the electrical meters in each of our buildings so that we would have continual monitoring of power going into our building to provide our team with the ability to know basically 24/7 if anything happened with any of our buildings with electrical. The committee approved that work. Since then, Allie and I have learned that there is a product out there that a number of municipalities and now businesses are using in Wisconsin called Data Wrangler. And what that product does is it's software that sits on these meters that come into your buildings to allow us to do incredibly detailed tracking of our utility data. In order to utilize the Data Wrangler product, which we have as an agenda item tonight for the budget committee's consideration, we have to switch the meters from the ones we originally were intending to use, which were called Schneider meters, to meters called Dent meters. The Dent meters work with the Data Wrangler system. And for a small upcharge to go from what we had requested to the Dent meters, we have the ability to do some things from the utility perspective that we didn't before. Allie and I spent quite a bit of time on this in the last couple of months to understand how districts are utilizing this technology. But a perfect example, just to share with you what would be possible. With the Dent meters, we would put a Dent meter, of course, at the high school. We would have the ability to determine what a baseline utility usage is of the field house. We would then have the ability to track on a Saturday if all day long a for-profit group was coming in to want to use the field house. So the first time ever, we'd be able to specifically say for-profit group A that's coming in to use the field house all day to run tournaments is actually drawing $350 worth of electrical costs from the district. Right now, our general fund, our Fund 10 is completely paying for that. So there is a very significant cost occurring. I know, Jack, you brought up this point quite a few times before that we don't really know the true cost of community use of our facilities, and we're not truly charging what the cost is to use our facilities. Because we've heard that from Jack before, when Allie and I learned about this product, we asked John and his team to pause on the meters so that Allie and I could take a couple of months to really look into this. So we're bringing that back to the budget committee tonight so the budget committee can see what that would look like. It has the potential to do quite a bit for us. I mean, it's a very progressive system, but I think it's something worthy of consideration. We just would need a little bit more of an investment on the meter end to be able to make the utility software end work. So I just wanted to call that one to your attention. Obviously, there's a number of other items on the list that I want John and his team to be able to answer any questions for you on.
So Steve, is it an additional almost 10,000 above and beyond the 88?
Yep, that's about. So there's a number.
And when you brought up the field house, can you monitor other areas of the building as well so that you can segregate what areas utilizing power?
Yep, absolutely. And one of the bigger things, even bigger than the community use of it, is it tracks the on-demand charges that hit our utility bill, which is like 40% of our bill. And it allows the district to have data to change up some of our decade-long practices on how we heat and cool our buildings. So as an example, we could pre-cool a building and draw more electricity in at 7 a.m. when the demand is lower, and try to turn off our system when the kitchens are running. Because whether it's a residence or a business, you're being charged with your greatest demand that you use on your building. This allows us to tackle that 40% as well, to try to get that down. They're doing some work with area businesses in the business park, and this is really kind of an emerging technology to really to put property owners in the position to really try to dial in deeper on their utility expenditures.
What other districts are using this?
So a good example is Kettle Moraine District, Oconomowoc District. Allie and I have all the information for the budget committee part tonight. But there are a number of districts. The DPI has vetted it out and has approved it as a use to look at community use of your buildings in Fund 80. So there's a lot of potential there. It's just switching out that additional $8,000 just puts us in the position. So even if the budget committee determines tonight we're not quite ready to do the data wrangler product, at least our meters will be ready if we go in this direction.
So is the data wrangler product subscription?
It is. Yep.
And what's do you have the number of subscriptions?
Yep. So we have estimates that we're going to go over tonight that show like the Fund 80, the utility expenditures that they are capturing in other districts, the on-demand charges that they're reducing in other districts, as well as the Fund 50, the food service component. Those are the three different things that the system is currently capable of doing. So we'll be able to go and show the connection between the meters that you're seeing here, and then really the accounting and the budgeting that goes with it. Some of the other things you see on the list, the only school that doesn't have an adaptive swing in the elementary is Arboretum. So that request has come forward to add an adaptive swing at that school. Basically, John and his team have worked through other requests that basically have come forward over the last couple of months. The most significant one that I'll call your attention to is the field house HVAC equipment. There's been a pretty significant investment by this committee in the field house this spring, whether it's the painting, whether it's, I mean, there's just a number of things that you've approved to get the field house in a really nice looking condition for the fall. There is a HVAC is SOC, the right term, goes across the whole school or the whole field house that's in really bad condition. John has spent a lot of time trying to explore, can it be cleaned? Can it be repaired? Can it be replaced? But in the end, we have a replacement on here for your consideration, because the investment in the cleaning and the repair is so significant that it just seems like it's at end of life and is worthy of being replaced. But at this point, I'd love for John to tackle any questions you might have about these remaining things on the list or anyone on the team.
It's just, from a philosophy standpoint, what you've always said is, building budgets. You know, do they not have the building budget for it, or?
So which one is that on there?
You have to swing, swing seat.
So that's the
1780.
Sure.
Doesn't the building have the budget to replace that? Because I thought that's kind of a philosophy, carryover type stuff.
I think in general, yes. The exception with this one is for the first time ever, we're really using facility funds to have an adaptable playground at Heritage. The other schools are looking at that, obviously, and are saying, you know, we don't have that kind of equipment either in our playgrounds, and there is going to be a request much, much larger than this to actually have adaptive playground equipment at our other schools that would look like Heritage. That scope is too significant to be looking at right now. It has to be planned out. There needs to be design made for it. But ultimately, there is going to be strong interest in having the same type of equipment that's going into our new schools at our other ones. This is more of a short-term move, knowing that we don't have that adaptable swing at just one of our schools. So typically, Jack, yes, we would have all playground stuff coming out of building budgets. But the new Heritage is being funded by facilities to get that adaptable equipment in. That's the reason why we put this one on here. If it would have been like an additional slide or an additional swing, we wouldn't have put it on here. But we did put it on here because of the fact that it's more of an adaptable piece of equipment and knowing there'd be more coming. But could this be handled in a different way? Yes. We have federal flow-through funds that are available to us. We have building budget available to us. If the preference of the committee was not to have a piece of playground equipment on this list right now, I will tell you, we will still get that done. We'll just do it a different way. That's totally fine.
So if we approve this on this line item, then federal pass through, can we still get that?
Yes, we would put that towards that. Yes, and that's a very reasonable thing to do.
So if we approve it here, then we could still get federal pass through.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I would pull it off this list and have it be on the federal grant instead to keep it separate than this.
Does that make sense?
Sure, absolutely. It's fine to do it that way.
Is that, so as we're talking about the playground, there's a proposal for civil engineering services for all 3 playgrounds. Does that have to do with?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you for bringing it up. So what Katie's referencing is the bigger picture of Heritage having adaptable playground equipment and the other ones not. We have a proposal from Roxanne Johnson, who's the civil engineer for both of our new buildings, to begin the process, because that's going to take a while, to study the civil engineering, the drainage of all of the existing playgrounds, to put together a plan. Now, ultimately, in the end, there's going to have to be different versions of that plan, because I would think it's probably not going to be likely that we would replicate Heritage at the other schools due to the cost. But there may be some modifications that could be made to get the other playgrounds to have similar concepts. That's what that's for.
And that is something that, so the swing can fall under federal.
Yep.
This re-engineering could not.
Yeah, excellent question.
Stay in this.
Yep. So the swing, because it is specific, it will be specifically purchased for students with IEPs. The equipment can go in a federal grant. An adult consultant who would be designing the playgrounds that would be, I would off the top of my head believe that that would have to come out of here. However, if you wanted to pull that to have Ally and I do some research into it, we would probably email the DPI and say, we just need to know, this is a very unique cost. It will lead to playground equipment for special ed students. Is it or is it not an eligible expense? I think we need a little bit of time to dive into that one. I don't think there's any sense of urgency with this. If you wanted us to explore that, we could certainly do that before the next meeting.
As long as you, I mean, if it's something you think is worth doing it right away, you know, okay.
Yep, so we would then ask you to modify this just to remove the playground components or anything else that you would like to see removed.
Make a motion to improve this with the exception of ADA swing and the engineering charges. Civil engineering charges.
Second. Great. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you, Rebecca. So just as a reminder for planning ahead, Jay mentioned a June meeting. So at the June meeting, we would be showing again the middle school and probably the GMP if you guys can get that done by then. If not, it would be July. More subcontractor awards. And then we certainly will bring back anything related to capital projects for consideration. I feel like we probably will not really have a high school agenda item. I think we brought everything to you now that could be changed and moved to other locations. I think at that point we would be into the project, the high school. So I don't think we'll be bringing high school. Anything else?
Bethel, I think we would bring the
Bethel.
final,
What?
the final plan for Bethel that met that 650,000.
So when do you start the high school? Predators starts June 10th.
So there'll be a lot going on this summer between there, here, wrapping up Heritage, kicking off middle school.
You have your whole crew here then?
And we'll set the next meeting at
On Monday. Yep.
on Monday. Okay, so motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Thank you very much.
Yes.